Have you ever played a game that everyone thought was bad but you really liked at least one aspect of it? Maybe you played Forspoken and really loved the traversal elements of it, even if you really hated the writing. Welcome back to Other Pixel Games. We're doing something a little bit different today. Here are 5 poorly received games that I think made really underrated or even great design choices. I'm classifying these as poorly received as they had around a 5 out of 10 as their user scores on Metacritic. One last thing, there are a lot of games that were poorly received and I thought their stories, their characters or their world saved them, but I'm not going to talk about narrative, otherwise we're going to be here all day. So with that being said, here's 5 poorly received games with great designs. Dragon Age 2 by BioWare came out in 2011, only 2 years after the massively successful Dragon Age Origins. A single-player dark fantasy story-driven RPG where you control a party of 4 characters who save the world. And Dragon Age 2 took that formula and tried to move it forward. When Dragon Age 2 was released, it got a lot of negativity from people who just didn't love it as much as the first game. And though in recent years, people have started to look back on it with more fondness for some reason...
Wait, you can't just leave me with this. Good luck with that.
It still has a 4.9 user score on Metacritic, so it definitely fulfills the requirements for this video. Though it is some people's favourite Dragon Age, yes, I'm those people, when it came out, people had some fairly legitimate problems with it, especially when you compared it to its predecessor. Its wave-based fights made it feel more repetitive and less like you were stumbling on people to fight and more like a game that was dropping enemies on you. The character creation when compared to the first game had very few options, no race options, and made people feel like they weren't in charge of their character. And people really didn't like the world, which was much smaller than the original and almost entirely took place in one city. So in amongst all of these issues that people had, what could I possibly praise about its design choices? Its combat, its movement, its upgrade and gear systems? No, none of those. And while they were fine and I could proselytise all day about how you're actually wrong and the small world is a good thing when you consider that all of these problems stem from the fact that it was supposed to be an expansion, not a full game, but the powers that be decided that it had to be a full game. So the decision to reuse all these locations and work it into the story was a really good thing actually. I'm not going to do that. Any more than I already have. What I am going to talk about is a system that ran in the background that I didn't even know was there until after I finished the game, and which made me change my view on RPGs as a whole. That system was the personalities system. It was a real basic system that simply stored points based on which type of dialogue options you chose. If you chose a humorous response,
perhaps we'll be lucky and they'll run out of darkspawn.
It would put a point in humorous. If you chose a diplomatic response,
we'll make it through this, together.
It would put a point in diplomatic, and if you chose an aggressive response,
we'll take the bastards down with us.
It would put a point in aggressive. So what were all these points for? Well, it was for your character's personality. The more you put points in one of these personality types, the more the dialogue that you didn't choose reflected that personality. Maybe you chose aggressive options a lot, then your character's standard dialogue, even without your input, would be more aggressive. Same for diplomatic or for humorous. Even the flavour conversations that happened while you were walking around were affected.
Did you just call me fat?
Yes, that's pretty much how I tell it. Hawk rolled into the fray like a gigantic pudding covered in gravy. It's more dramatic that way.
I'm not sure about the epicness of this tale.
Everyone's a critic.
Does it have to be gravy? Couldn't it be chocolate instead?
Everyone's a critic.
I hope the story ends, and then Hawk backhanded the mouthy dwarf.
Everyone's a critic.
Why does any of this matter? Well, I guess it doesn't, but it was a revelation to me. Dragon Age 2 opened my eyes to character-driven games, and not just a character that the design team had written a story for, but one with a personality I could affect. It was a small thing, certainly, but it feels to me at least like it was the basis of character-driven open-world games, where you couldn't know what the player had done when you went to have a conversation, but wanted to reference it anyway.
Tell me everything you know.
You aren't worried I'll just make it up as I go?
Not at all.
You'll need to hear the whole story.
Back 4 Blood by developer Turtle Rock Studios is a 4-person co-op linear shooter released in 2021 to a monstrous amount of marketing and a huge swell of good faith because it was the spiritual successor to the wildly popular Left 4 Dead franchise, and it was being made by people who worked on it. But when it finally came out, well, let's just say that it wasn't spiritual enough. Actually, let's not just say that. We'll elaborate because that's why we're here. People had such high hopes for the game that when it was finally released and it wasn't the next great thing, it fell off its high pedestal pretty hard. It was plagued with bad AI, which honestly is a real problem because the AI was something that its spirit daddy Left 4 Dead was praised for. There were complaints that it had crazy high load times even on PS5 and Xbox Series X, which caused some players network issues and made the game unplayable. It had cosmetic microtransactions which at the time, and still now to be honest, left a bad taste in people's mouths. But for many people, the biggest problem was that it didn't improve upon Left 4 Dead in any meaningful way. The gameplay was the same, the way levels worked was the same, the only real difference was the card system, which, coincidentally, is why Back 4 Blood is on this list. The cards in Back 4 Blood were basically equipables that could modify your stats. It could add 50% damage to your grenades, it could make it so that you could heal a little bit every time you attack with your melee, it gave you more ammo capacity and more. As you played through the game, you'd unlock more cards to add to your deck and get some truly great effects. But you couldn't just apply everything you wanted from the start of a mission, so you were never overpowered. At least, not when the game came out. Now it's a little different, but the way Back 4 Blood's card system worked when it came out was that as you play through a campaign, you would periodically get to equip a card that's been randomly chosen from your deck. Over the full campaign, you would be able to create a build based on which cards you picked for your deck and which cards the game offered you throughout the campaign. If you were good at the deck building aspect, you could cater the game to your own playstyle, stacking the deck with shotgun cards if you really like shotguns, or you could even create interesting synergies by putting in cards that affect each other, like a card that heals you when you kill with fire and a card that gives you fire-based attacks, like the Pyro card and the expired T5 cards respectively. While I do think that the cards could have been a bit more interesting, I really do like this system a lot. By making you have to collect the cards through a campaign, it kept the game's balance intact. Offering new cards as rewards keeps the game interesting and offers another thing to be excited about as you continue, and the system offers you the ability to customize the experience to something that you personally can enjoy. Take me for instance. I can't use precise weapons when I'm using a gaming controller, but with this I don't have to. I could pick up the first shotgun I found and make it extremely powerful through the cards that I had collected.
Welcome to the team.
For number 3, we have a more recent game, the 2024 Ubisoft open world action RPG Star Wars offering, Star Wars Outlaws. On release, I saw more hate for this game than any of the others, and yet it's also the highest rated game on the list, which just goes to show you that you can't always listen to the loudest voices. Or maybe it doesn't say that, since the other games came out in a less vitriolic environment and it did still have a 5.5 user rating when I checked for the video, which is still pretty damning. Outlaws suffered from 3 actual problems and 1 fabricated issue. The game came out quite buggy, giving players a poor first impression that lingered long past the bugs being fixed. People felt that the gameplay was somewhat unimaginative, taking watered down pieces of other games like a light version of the Uncharted traversal and combining them with gameplay elements of less well received series like the gunplay from the Watch Dogs series, and hoping that the Star Wars license would hold it up. There were a lot of complaints about the enemy AI, saying that it was unrealistic and immersion breaking, but the biggest complaint I heard, the fabricated one, was from the Gamer Bros who complained about the way the main character Kay Vess looked, stating that she was unattractive, which, I mean, maybe if you only like totally artificial anime girls. So plenty to complain about, even if you're not a degenerate, but the thing I really like about it was the skill system, specifically the way you earn and unlock new skills. In Outlaws, instead of earning experience points for killing things that level you up and give you skill points that you put in a skill tree like most games, you have to find people throughout the game world who have the skills that you want to learn and get them on your side before you can get their skills. Even after that, to get the skills and equipment they have, you need to perform certain actions while you play, as if you're inching closer to figuring the skill out yourself, or you have to collect pieces of tech so that you can make or upgrade the tool that the new skill is giving you. I found it to be so much more realistic and also much more interesting and interactive than a traditional system where you just passively get a level now and then. It forces you to try out new and different things to move forward, showing you the variety of things that you can do and opening up new avenues for future missions. It's a genuinely great system that works for both gameplay and feels right for the story.
Just like flying a speeder, right, Nix? Nope.
People really don't like this one. With its 3.1 user score, Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance is the lowest scoring game on the list, and honestly, I get it. Every game on this list are games that I've completed and that I had fun with, but for someone for whom Dungeons & Dragons became a big part of their personality for a while, this game, well, it's not what most people think of when they hear D&D. Dark Alliance was a reboot of a series from back in 2004. The original was a top-down action game with an expressive story, puzzles, traps, and a world to explore. The 2021 reboot was none of those things. It was a third-person linear hack and slash with little to no story, where you had to play one of the four most famous D&D characters. Most people, when they look at a D&D game, are looking to make their own character, they're looking for a good story, they're looking for tactical gameplay, they're looking for fun interactions with their friends. Again, this game doesn't really do any of that. Not only that, but it was also riddled with networking issues and bugs galore. Still, if I played through the whole thing and enjoyed it, despite all of that, there must have been something to enjoy. Well, yes, in fact there was. And that was playing with my uncle who I got to chat with all the way through. But that isn't what we're here to talk about. We're here to chat about the short rest system in the game. I have to admit right now though, I'm writing this on memory because I don't own it anymore, so I couldn't go back and play it. The short rest system was an ad hoc difficulty system in the game. As you played through a level, you'd come to checkpoints after clearing big groups of enemies or after a particularly difficult section. At these checkpoints, you were given two options. You could either take a short rest, which would create a new checkpoint and refill your consumable items like your potions, or you could choose to forgo your checkpoint and instead raise the rarity and quality of loot items that you'll collect. Every time you forego a checkpoint and take the increase in rarity, you get better and better loot, but taking a short rest lowers it again. But a lot of games have a system that lets you earn better rewards in exchange for a more difficult experience. So why do I like this one? Why did I single that out? Well, most of these systems make you pick at the beginning of a round. You decide that you want to start at super mega hard difficulty, and if you can beat it, you get the good rewards. In this system, you make the decisions while you play the game. If it's going well, you keep the difficulty up. You keep earning rarer and rarer rewards. If you're struggling, you can get a reset. You can ease off the throttle a little and regroup. Where other systems are everything or nothing, this lets you dip your toe in whenever you're feeling like you can accept a little higher challenge. And if you screw up, if you never get to the point where you can take on a harder challenge, that's okay, because everything you did in that session still earns you rewards. So instead of jumping into a pit of hungry crocodiles, you can just dip a toe in and see how quickly it gets nipped off.
So, stick to the plan? Put down I'm only human after all. I'm only human.
Since we started with the BioWare game I love, let's finish with one I keep trying and failing to like. Mass Effect Andromeda, released in 2017, was, let's face it, doomed from the start. Even if we ignore all of the problems that the game had, and there were many, it was a first game and a new start, with a new protagonist that spun off from an incredibly well-loved series, and that never ends well, and it certainly didn't here. It also didn't help that the pre-release marketing videos had an issue with their facial animations that made the game look far worse than it ended up being on release. But if that was all that was wrong with it, sometime in the last 8 years since its release, people would have gone back to it and treated it like a hidden gem. Unfortunately, there was more. The game was filled with Ubisoft-style open-world slop in an attempt to stretch the game out. They'd simplified the gameplay, making it far less tactical, and most damning of all for a BioWare game, it had boring characters and a weak story. Still, there was one way it shined: the fluid gameplay. As great as the original Mass Effect series was and still is, the gameplay was only okay. You weren't there for that though. You were there for the story, for the characters, for the epicness, for the scale, but not necessarily for the gameplay. This was the place that Mass Effect Andromeda made its mark. It added a jetpack, it added dashing, it added much more of the fast-paced action. In fact, the gameplay exhibited in Andromeda in many ways is the precursor for the movement shooters that we have today, like Remnant or Returnal. Sure, it simplified everything outside of the movement of the gunplay, but it is in that core gameplay that this game shines. Unfortunately, the light of that shine was blotted out by every other part of the game that was on fire.
The Reapers. You big, stupid jellyfish.
So those were 5 poorly received games that had great designs buried in there somewhere. Can you think of a game that nobody liked but you could see a little bit of a gem buried in there somewhere? Let me know in the comments, then like and subscribe to let me know that you like this type of content. And I'll see you in the next video.